Namaste, listeners. This is David Hensley. I am the owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions, and you are listening to Long Walk Talks Lost. I am joined tonight by, what did we call you last time? With the...
oh, that's right. We came up with a new intro, didn't we?
The new shtick, the Namaste, with my two co-hippies.
There you go.
Robert.
The only time I will tolerate being called a hippie.
Yep, and Cara. And we're a few weeks late on this assignment. Lots of things got in the way. We're wrapping up this portion of the season with our Lost adjacent movie. So previously we had talked about Brick because it featured Emily DeRavin, and then we watched The Stepfather 1 and 2 because it featured Terry O'Quinn. And on our last episode, I had announced that the movie we'd be watching was Smoking Aces from 2007 because it featured 3 Lost alumna, Matthew Fox, Nestor Carbonell, and
Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant. I can never remember his name.
I always just want to say Keamy, like anytime
Exactly.
I see him in a different role.
Yeah, exactly. But instead, I feel like serendipity struck, and we went in a different direction. There's an almost 30-year-old movie franchise that just recently had a new installment. Robert and I are both fans of this franchise, and in preparation for this new one, I went back and watched the rest of them and realized in rewatching them, one of them features William Mapother, a.k.a. Ethan Raume from Lost. Wouldn't it be fun if we did this movie at one point? But then I just sort of let it go until I was coming home one night and I had my Pandora set to 2000's alternative. And what should come on but the song Take a Look Around by Limp Bizkit, a.k.a. the theme song to Mission Impossible 2.
I really have to admire your courage for admitting on a recording in 2025 that you listened to Limp Bizkit on Pandora.
Hell fucking yeah, I did. I had not heard that song in 25 years. Katie rewatched it with me a few weeks ago in preparation. So Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning came out back in May. Rewatched all of them up to that. Katie watched the second one with me with the caveat I told her ahead of time, this is one of the worst movies ever made. It's going to be hilarious.
It was the only one in the franchise I hadn't seen prior to this viewing.
Yeah, I was 14 years old when this movie came out. And as a 14-year-old, I fucking loved it. I thought it was brilliant. There were car chases, and Ethan had 2 guns, and he drove a motorcycle through a flaming car. It was great.
Doves everywhere.
And I can't remember if it was Rogue Nation or Fallout that I went back and I did my first rewatch, having not watched the second one in years, and I went, wow, this is fucking bad. What did I see in this movie?
For Rogue Nation or Fallout?
When you
rewatch the second one. Okay.
Yeah. No, I love Rogue Nation and Fallout. Rewatching the second one, I was just like, what the hell is this movie? So let's talk about it. Let's just general opinion first off the bat. Is this one of the worst movies ever made?
No. Not by a long shot.
You don't think so?
I would say comfortably the worst of the series.
Oh,
And
for sure.
I say this as someone who I had a good time watching it. It's bad. It's a mess. And the only reason I would see an argument for it not being, or for it not being in the bottom spot in a ranking of these movies is that it's got more style and personality than 3 does, because 3 just is very competent across the board and has only a handful of things that really elevate it, chiefly the cast and Philip Seymour Hoffman is a bad guy. It's one of those cases, do you like an ambitious failure like 2, or do you like kind of a competent mid-range success like 3 is? But every other film in the franchise very easily clears this one.
Oh, yeah. Like, if I were ranking them, I know the bottom 3 would be 6, Final Reckoning, 7, 3, and then dead last would be 2. But before we dive into it, I forgot. We did
Cara,
themed lunch.
I think I might have skipped over you because I was talking a lot on that one, but what did you think of it? Good or bad?
Oh, my God. It was insanely strange and weird, and I can't say I hated it. I can't say I liked it.
You watched it?
I watched it.
Yeah, you were there.
Yes, I saw all the insanity that was on the screen.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about our themed lunch.
Oh, yeah.
Because we threw out a bunch of ideas. This movie came out in 2000, so we were like, what was popular in 2000? What did I throw out there? It was like Sobe soda and something else. It was Taco Bell and Sobe.
Yeah.
Shall have gotten just a giant gallon of Surge to wash everything down.
So we Googled it, like what was the most popular thing, and one of the answers was sushi, which we had not had together in a while. So we went and ate a fuck ton of sushi before we watched this movie.
At Akahana in Fort Mill, which if you happen to live in our region and you have an Akahana location near you, highly recommend. It's a great spot.
Agreed.
It was the best part of the afternoon, in my opinion. I mean, I love watching movies with you guys, but I also just enjoy eating meals with you.
Yes.
All right. Mission Impossible 2. First thing I put down is that much like Lost, this story also begins in Sydney, Australia, with a flight that is supposed to be going to Atlanta, but for some reason is crossing over the Rockies.
Yeah, the geography of that's kind of unclear because
they would have had to go in the opposite direction.
Yeah. I know that after 9/11, I know that they put the rule in place, like you cannot fly from overseas over the continental United States. Like you have to stop at, like Charlotte Douglas or LAX or somewhere and like refuel and switch planes. I think that was generally a rule before just because it takes a lot of fuel to cross the Pacific Ocean and then to fly across the U.S. But yeah, the geography of that was weird.
Very much so. And also, like Lost, this movie begins with a plane crash.
Yay.
Cara's favorite. Unfortunately, there are a lot less survivors of this plane crash.
Yeah, and this one, if we were to watch a series about the people on the plane, they really would have been dead the whole time. Our first character is, I labeled him in the notes as Russian character actor extraordinaire Rade Shebedozija. I'm probably saying his name wrong. He's not actually Russian. He's Croatian, or I think he was born in Yugoslavia at the time. But I call him a Russian character actor because he's basically the go-to guy for a Russian heavy in the movies. He's played like the bad. He was on a season of 24 as the villain. He was Boris the Butcher in Snatch. He was like an evil poacher in Mighty Joe Young, the Charlize Theron giant gorilla movie that I really loved as a kid. Just one of those faces that you see, and he's just a capital H, hey, it's that guy actor.
I really thought you had just made up a bunch of syllables to say there until I glanced over at the notes and went, oh no, that looks like he said it right.
My best thing. He will always be a that guy for me. But
Well, when we're introduced to the villains of this movie, we don't know they're villains yet because Rade a bunch of syllables, bunch of consonants. His informant on this plane is none other than Ethan Hunt, the protagonist of the first Mission Impossible, played by Tom Cruise. Except, no, it isn't.
What?
It's Dougray Scott in a mask, in an Ethan mask. But as we're being introduced to people, we see one of his henchmen, the aforementioned William Mapother, and I wrote down, hey, it's Ethan, and other Ethan, because, Tom Cruise's character's name is Ethan Hunt, and 4 years later, his cousin would play a character named Ethan Rom. There's just some fun trivia for you.
We also have Richard Roxburgh as kind of the chief henchman, who I guess most people would know as the bad guy from Moulin Rouge or Dracula and Van Helsing. Just an Australian actor who I don't think has had a lot of big roles after that series of events, but has worked pretty steadily.
Now, Cara, I want to ask you a question. How much do you love Hugh Jackman?
I like him a lot.
Yeah. Well, you can thank Dougray Scott for that.
Oh.
Because he was originally cast as Wolverine in Bryan Singer's X-Men.
Oh.
Way back in 2000. And because he dropped out to be in this, they cast Hugh Jackman. And he is now still playing Wolverine 25 years later.
And I'm here for it.
So I think it wasn't even that he chose this over that. It was just I think that the filming on this dragged out so long, and I think he suffered an injury filming one of the motorcycle scenes. So he just like... they were like, we can't hold off on X-Men any longer. Let's get that musical guy. Who was the dude in Oklahoma? Yeah, he's our Wolverine.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about... So after the plane crash, we get our totally awesome extreme sports mountain climbing no rope scene.
I hated this.
Our introduction in this film to Ethan Hunt is him free climbing up a mountain in, what is that? Is it Nevada, Utah?
Looks like that, yeah.
Now, obviously, this was done. He wasn't actually free climbing, but I don't think any insurance company on any movie set ever would have allowed that. But the character is supposed to be. And
For the scene where he's like jumping between ropes and or jumping between outcroppings and catching onto a cliff with one hand, I expected a Gatorade logo to appear just in the sky behind him as he was going.
or to somebody in a skateboard goes by and says, Mountain Dew.
And we even end with a helicopter flying past, shooting they use a rocket launcher to just shoot a pod into the ground next to him, which contains a pair of sunglasses, which is what gives us our classic Mission Impossible, good day, Mr. Hunt. Here is your mission, should you choose to accept. And it ends with him throwing the sunglasses away as they explode in midair, which it's always been a thing in this series that, the thing self-destructs. Weird to do that with something that is explicitly supposed to be on your agent's face. There has to have been a case where they're like, why hasn't Agent X reported in yet? Oh, we found his smoking headless corpse in the mountains because he couldn't get the glasses off in time.
Oh, man. Yeah, continue, Robert.
Well, I just, one thing that was interesting kind of all through this movie was this was sort of before the franchise really had an identity, even if that identity was let's see how far Tom Cruise can go to nearly kill himself on camera. So this movie just really borrows the structure of a James Bond film. Like you have the action heavy prologue, you have, our hero off doing something in his free time when he's called in by his boss. And as we go through, we get, the femme fatale that he recruits but also kind of falls for. You have the colorful villain and his colorful homoerotically coded henchman. It's interesting to see this attempt at this is the James Bondist that Ethan Hunt ever got to be. And it was just interesting to sort of see that play out in a way that made me remember how much I love James Bond when it's done well. And this is not really James Bond done very well.
Nope. But shortly after this opening sequence, Ethan goes and meets with his handler and also apparently the head of the IMF. That's right, the Impossible Mission Force. Don't question what... Yep, that's the name. That's what IMF stands for, Cara.
Oh, I had no idea.
The gasp that she just gasped.
They waited until the second to last film in the franchise to have somebody note that there is actually a real-world governmental agency called the IMF. It's the International Monetary Fund. Mm-hmm. And for somebody to react to, the IMF is hunting down a nuclear device. What is the International Monetary Fund doing going after a nuclear device?
Not that IMF, somebody dramatically says.
Wow.
It's actually the only film in the franchise where Ethan is start to finish working for the IMF. At no point does he go rogue or get framed for a crime or get disavowed or anything like that, which is weird because he is framed for a crime in the opening, but his boss is immediately like, well, we know that wasn't you. So
missed opportunity to go 8 for 8. Well, anyway, the handler shows up on screen, and I put down, that's right, Anthony Hopkins, motherfuckers. He is uncredited and just shows up, much to everyone's surprise.
There's no mistaking that voice.
No.
At all.
So it's also, I think, important to note a little bit about the history of this movie because it was intended by director John Woo, who was a fucking Hong Kong legend, for this to be a 3-hour spy romance epic that was taken away from him and trimmed down into a 95-minute action film. And you can tell there was some conflict between John Woo and the studio, and then John Woo and Tom Cruise, and I think Tom Cruise ended up getting final edit.
There's a report that Woo was physically locked out of the editing room for this. Literally a door that he could not access was between him and the final cut of the film.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It's the reason he left Hollywood and has not been back since. He went on to resume his film career in Hong Kong, and God bless him for it. He's still out there making not Hollywood studio pictures. I really wonder, it's lost to time at this point, unfortunately, but I would like to see the 3-hour version of this, especially because in 2000 it was unheard of for a movie to be 3 hours long, unless you were something like Braveheart or a big epic like that, a historical epic. Nowadays, the last 2 Mission Impossible movies, Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning, clocked in at 2:45 and 2:55, I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
John Woo was just 20, 25 years ahead of his time. I would love release the woo cut hashtag.
One can imagine that movie probably being a bit of a mess, but also working better because so much of what's supposed to be kind of the human hook is the relationship between Ethan and Naya, this thief played by Thandie Newton or
Tandy.
Tandy. So she recently, I wouldn't say she changed her name. She was going apparently by the misspelled version of her first name in Hollywood for decades because like a casting director very early on misspelled her name and she was too like insecure about her place in, as a woman of color breaking into the movie industry to correct anybody. And she finally came out and was like, yeah, that's not how my first name is spelled. It's never been, but I was always so scared of getting fired. I never wanted to say anything. But I'm going to keep saying Tandy just because.
That's what I've always heard.
Yeah, like it's spelled with a W at the end. I actually don't know if that affects the pronunciation or not. But anyway, the relationship between her and Ethan is supposed to be kind of the focal point of this movie. And in the first third of it, we get a fair amount of scenes building that up. And then it just kind of stops. And she just becomes like, oh, she's a woman who will get killed if Ethan doesn't save the day. And it's just like, it's crazy how this movie stops having like, it's so front loaded with this emotional connection. And then that just goes away. Like, and you can almost clock the scene where they're like, and we're done with that relationship now.
Mm-hmm. And you can tell there was supposed to have been a scene where they were introduced to each other. Because instead what we get in the finished film is they see each other from across the dance floor in gratuitous slow motion, and I fuck the shit out of each other.
Yeah, and there's flamenco going on between them because she's there to steal something, and thieving is always better with flamenco.
You're goddamn right it is. But it's clear, like, when they encounter each other, when she's doing her thieving, she's like, oh, it's you. And you just know that there was something else there that the studio cut because they were like, this is an action movie, not a romance.
I just assumed that, his reputation had preceded him.
Maybe so.
Yeah, that could be it. Aren't you international super spy Ethan Hunt?
Yeah.
It's weird, honestly. This is the film in the franchise where Cruise feels like he has the least idea of what he's doing because all of the other movies give him some kind of immediate hook of like, you're escaping from prison or you've been framed for the murder of your team or, your wife has been kidnapped. And this one, he's just a guy doing his job. And again, it's supposed to be the relationship with Naya that drives him, but they don't really do enough with that. So I love Tom Cruise as a movie star generally, but this is very comfortably his worst performance. He just he's not sure what he's doing. And the style of Woo's just swallows him up so much of the time.
Well, in their very next scene together, they are both in convertibles driving along a coastal highway. He calls her on her cell phone, and I noted, God, cell phones used to be so small. There was a period in history when the goal was to see how small can we make this device.
Yep.
And you were cool if you had the tiniest phone. Now the measure is how fucking big and flat can we make these phones? But also, like, after the phone call ends, he just pulls up alongside her, and they just start screaming at each other from one convertible to another. Neither of them should have been able to hold a conversation of any kind.
No.
Yeah, and they start just, like, doing car foo at each other, like, skidding each other around and, like, driving each other into the wrong lane, and it's flirty, but also just, like... What are you doing to this person you're supposed to recruit? Yeah,
and also their cars get locked up next to each other as they are spinning in slow motion. And it's like, wow, this mission is going to go horribly awry 10 minutes into the movie when they both go careening off of a cliff to their deaths.
Yeah, because that was the thing that got me. They're doing this heading down a mountain. What?
Imagine IMF director Anthony Hopkins getting a phone call. It's like, he what? He was sent there to recruit her and he ran her off a cliff?
Well,
he's dead too?
We eventually do find out that the whole reason that Doug Ray Scott, I think his name is Ambrose or something, but the reason he's able to do this is he was an IMF agent, and apparently IMF has the practice of just what they call doubling their agents, so like give them a mask of another agent. Like if we need this agent for a job, so in this case, this doctor who dies in the plane crash in the first scene, he knew Ethan and trusted him, but Ethan wasn't available, so they just give another IMF agents Ethan. They give his an Ethan mask and a voice chip for him, and that's just something they do as regular practice. And then this guy has already gone rogue, so they don't really deal with it. But the whole reason this global threat is happening is because IMF was just too lazy to call Ethan back from his vacation early.
Well, I mean, when you possess that kind of technology, why not? I would be fucking around with that shit constantly.
Oh yeah.
This is the maskiest of the Mission Impossible movies, and honestly, I don't think there's another movie where someone else puts on an Ethan mask, and that happens like 4 times across this film. And I was like, every other time it's Ethan or one of the other IMF agents masking up, but I don't think anybody else disguises themselves as Ethan.
I don't think so off the top of my head. Everything but Final Reckoning gets a lot of mileage out of this magical technological wonder that is replicating somebody else's face to be worn by someone else. Of all the MacGuffins across all the movies, that's the most consistent and least believable.
Yeah. I will. So that before we move on from the car scene, it ends. Well, Cara, you were close. It ends with Naya's car careening off a cliff and like Ethan diving out of his car to catch her one-handed, and that's when he makes his final recruitment pitch. And for the fans of Always Sunny in Philadelphia out there, I joked, "Well, Naya won't say no to recruitment now because of the implications."
I don't know if you know what that joke refers to. We'll explain it to you when you're older.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a Dennis Reynolds-ism that is awful. It's awful, but also hilarious. All of this builds up to cutting away to Ethan and Naya lying in bed together with the whole, modesty sheet for her thing. And I wrote down in the notes, is this the horniest Mission Impossible? Because in their first scene together, they're in a bathtub where she is straddling him, and the camera is positioned in such a loving downward angle that 2/3 of the screen is filled with Tandy Newton's cleavage.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of another Mission Impossible film that is this horny.
I haven't rewatched the first one in a while. I do remember a big part of the emotional arc of that one being built around Tom Cruise having an affair with Jon Voight's much younger wife. And that plays into the climax, but but yeah, otherwise, I don't know. I'd have to. Those are probably the only 2 that I'd put up there.
Well, all of that leads into the first of some of the most misogynistic lines ever committed to film. When IMF director Anthony Hopkins tells Ethan the real reason that he had him recruit Naya for this mission, which is because she used to date the inexplicably cool named Sean Ambrose, the rogue IMF agent, and her job is to get in close with him again. Ethan tries to protest that she's not trained for this sort of thing, to which which Anthony Hopkins responds, to go to bed with a man and lie to him? She's a woman. She's got all the training she needs.
Wow. Like in a scene that's already all about, we've established her as having this criminal background and having this set of skills, but that's actually not important. It's really just that she used to date this guy is the reason we need her. Then we just kind of put, the cherry on top of the sausage fest sundae.
Yep. World-class thief? Seductress? Yes. Get in there and have sex with that man again.
I don't remember the context of this line that I wrote down for the next note. So can you set up the context for that?
Yes. So after Ethan tells her the truth about why she's been recruited, that she needs to go and reestablish her relationship with Ambrose, he's like, she obviously has issues with this. I mean, I don't know why she would. But he says something to her along the lines of, would it make you feel better if I didn't want you to? And she says yes. To which he responds,
then feel better.
Which he shouts at her.
And I just said, #relationship hack. Just yell that at your significant other whenever you're having difficult times.
Would it make you feel better if X? Yes. Then feel better.
Logic. The sparkling dialogue continues when, and this one I do remember, Naya gets to Ambrose's house in Australia, and they've planted like a transmitter chip on her somewhere, but when Ambrose's team scan her, they don't pick it up. And Ambrose, or Ethan, William Mapother's character, who has a name, but I'm going to call him Ethan just because it's fun to confuse people, says she's clean, and then the chief henchman goes, "All cats are," and I just went, "What?"
I think all three of us plus Katie went, "What?"
Huh?
I mean, yeah, I guess. What?
Like, is that meant to be like, because cat can also mean pussy, and that it's like another misogynistic term, or?
Well, I kind of thought it was maybe just because, cats are meticulous about cleaning themselves. I don't know.
But we established that this guy doesn't trust her and thinks that there is something suspicious about her showing up again. But like, cats aren't known for being like duplicitous. They're sneaky, but they're pretty upfront about just wanting to, eat and, lie down wherever they want.
The dialogue in this movie is something else, because I'll set you up for the next one as well that you noted, Robert. When making his argument, so the lead henchman, was it Richard Roxburgh?
Richard Roxburgh. I think his name is
Hugh Stamp.
Hugh Stamp. There we go. Which is a name that I stared at because like there's got to be an entendre or something here, right? No, it's just an odd sounding name.
Yeah, just another weird, cool name for a henchman, Hugh Stamp. When Hugh Stamp is talking to Sean Ambrose, the villain, he says that he's suspicious of why Naya has come back and resumed her relationship, and tells Sean he doesn't think that she's exactly gagging for it.
Which, sure, that expression we were all using in 2000 to describe wanting to get back with somebody you used to date was gagging for them.
What?
Yes.
Nuh-uh.
No, I think he's being sarcastic.
Oh, I was like,
sarcastic.
what? Because I missed that totally.
And it ends with Doug Ray Scott, who clearly just kind of settles on being like super intense and scowly in all of his line readings. Explains that, well, he's going, even if he's not sure he can trust her, he still wants her back because, you see, I am gagging for it, he says with just the most intense growl. It's just like, and Richard Roxburgh earns his henchman credit by not immediately laughing in his boss's face.
Well, you wouldn't be laughing in your boss's face either if he was holding your pinky inside the opening of his cigar cutter, which he then snips off very cleanly.
It's a good cigar cutter.
Yeah, it's the world's sharpest cigar cutter. But this, I will give the movie a modicum of credit. This sets up something much later that I think actually does work really well in the movie's favor.
Yeah.
But before we get to things that work, let's keep talking about all the things that didn't.
So actually, my next note is something that I kind of liked, because as the franchise goes on, it gets so heavy on stunts and like crazy action set pieces, and it kind of leaves behind the tradecraft section. So there is kind of a fun sequence where they're at Ambrose and Naya are at a horse race, and the IMF team are there. They sneak an earpiece to Naya. She gets asked to pickpocket something from Ambrose, get that to Ethan. He makes a copy, and she has to get it back. Again, it's the classic spy movie stuff that I do kind of miss. I'm like, I was like, all right, I'm enjoying this because it's the kind of thing that this franchise did a lot of, and it's early going, and then just did no more of by the time of Fallout. And again, also the best James Bond movies usually have a sequence or two like that.
And as you pointed out a couple of times while we were watching, I don't know, I can't remember if you put this in the notes or not, but this was back when they were still writing scripts for these movies.
Yeah. Well, so I noted that, and then apparently I found like an interview where Wu said the opposite, because I thought that it became noticeable as the series went on that they started coming up with like set piece. Tom Cruise climbs the Burj Khalifa. Tom Cruise hangs off a cargo plane. Tom Cruise swims down to a submarine, and then go back and write a story that gets you from set piece to set piece. And this one, I thought, obviously was kind of hacked up in editing, but had the feeling of something was at least a little bit more like, okay, what's the plot? What is logical to do here based on the villain's plan? But apparently that wasn't the case. It was just a little less obvious because the set pieces weren't quite as spectacular. But apparently they did set piece first this one as well. So that issue in the series, if you see it that way, goes back further than I thought.
Yeah, it makes sense for this one, for sure.
One note, generally speaking, because Ambrose uses his Ethan Hunt mask that he still has a couple of times, including in one case where Nia is trying to sneak out because she thinks Ambrose is going to kill her. And then she's intercepted by Hunt, who tells her, you've got to go back in and you've got to stay there. It's so important. And as soon as she leaves, he takes the mask off and it's Ambrose. And I actually do think Tom Cruise does a fun thing of playing like his evil eye intensity. Just this way of like, because the thing of Tom Cruise is he's a very intense star, and to the point that it's a little scary how intense this guy is about everything he's doing. But he does have the way of turning the dial just a little bit further to actually bring out and he's about to kill someone in the next scene. Like he does it in the opening scene with the plane just before revealing that it's not really Hunt. And the way he's kind of like smiling and leaning towards Naya in the scene. It's a nice bit of him signaling that this isn't really the Ethan that we know and love.
No, and I was thinking about this particular scene and why it worked in 2000 and why I don't think it works now. Because the whole setup here is you think that Naya is talking to Ethan and that he's trying to warn her and keep her safe, even though you find out that it's Ambrose in an Ethan mask. While this scene is happening, the doctor who died in the beginning has the CEO of the company he used to work for. We're not going to talk much about the bananas fucking plot of this movie. But anyway, there's a scene where this previously thought to be dead doctor is talking to the CEO. And at the end of the scene, after getting the information he needs, the doctor walks off, pulls off the mask, and it's Ethan. And you're like, holy shit, if he's there, then who's over there? And that's when you realize, oh, that Ethan is actually Ambrose. Here's the reason that doesn't work, is because of the way that filmmaking and editing has evolved over the last 25 years. Nowadays, it would not be uncommon for an audience to think that these scenes just happened at different times and that they were integrated together in editing. Non-linear storytelling, in large part thanks to like Quentin Tarantino and directors like that, has become so commonplace in the last 25, 30 years that I don't think this trick would work now. Maybe I'm crazy, but I don't know. All of this builds to the first of the really big, like spycraft. We got to sneak into a place to steal a thing, and that requires precise timing and an exact team and all of this stuff. Ethan has to drop in through the air shaft of a building, and there's a very small window for him to do it. And the majority of this drop that he does into this building is CGI. And it's weird to think now that after all the practical stunts he's done in the last 25 years, now Tom Cruise would have just commissioned them to build an air shaft with closing louvers and actually done the drop himself. I just think that's fun.
It's also apparently like back then, people talked about him doing like a fair amount of stunts for the movie practically instead of using doubles, or not practically, but doing it himself instead of a double when practical work was required. And it's like, man, you thought he was crazy back then. The way they do that is kind of neat because you have like Ambrose knows he's going to break in, and so we cut between scenes of the IMF team talking about how they're going to break in, and then Ambrose explaining to his minions, because he knows Ethan and how he works, how he's going to go about it, and like including one line where he's like, Hunt's going to pull off he'll pull off some aerobatic insanity before he points a gun at any guard in that building, and it's like, yep, that he actually does have him on the nose there.
Yep, that tracks. And that builds to the setup of Ethan getting ambushed by Ambrose and his team, who brought Naya along with them. And there's some arguing back and forth about Naya being there, which sets up this next misogynistic but also low-key racist line from Ambrose. Robert?
Well, thank you for the honor. You know women, mate. Like monkeys they are, won't let go of one branch until they've got a grip on the next. Oh my.
Let's just let that one sit for a second.
Which, again, the camera with Anthony Hopkins' line earlier and with this one now, the camera cuts to Tom Cruise making a slightly disapproving face. I think that was probably one of the editing choices that Wu did not make and somebody else put in afterwards. But like, we can't have our hero not react a little bit to that.
What follows is some very 2000s action movie shenanigans involving Ethan with a pair of Berettas jumping around and shooting them at the same time, and explosions and slow motion and operatic music. And this was John Woo at his John Wooiest. And this was the point where I just stopped taking notes and just taking in the stupidity that we were watching. So, Robert, this next batch is like all you.
Yeah, I think a fair amount of this is stuff I went back and added in afterwards because, yeah, this is nowhere near the top of what John Woo can do, but it's even lower grade Woo is still so much fun. Like, there's just so much style and so much goofy self-confidence that, oh, it's a blast. So one of Woo's visual trademarks is having flocks of doves fly across in front of his protagonist as they walk forward. That's a big thing in like Hard Boiled and is it The Killer? The other one he did with
Yeah, The
Chow
Killer.
Yun-Fat?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess as sort of a wink to that, he has it happen with pigeons instead for a couple of scenes as Ethan's, walking forward. And then later on, there is an actual scene with doves. So I guess, I don't know, he just decided to do it a little ironically and then do it sincerely. We haven't even mentioned Brendan Gleeson, who plays like the evil CEO of the biomedical firm that blah, blah, blah. Like you said, the plot really isn't that much worth talking about. But Ambrose's whole thing is he's forcing the CEO to sell him, not just to pay him money, but to give him stock options. And so there's this dramatic scene where like the CEO and his accountant are typing keys on a laptop to transfer all of these options to Ambrose and his crew. And William Mapother is at the keyboard to confirm that the option, and they keep explaining how options work. Like this, it's not just like here's a bag full of $100 bills. You've got to explain what a stock option is and what market circumstances will make it valuable. It's just the weirdest thing to stop for an Econ 101 class in the middle of the Bond villain explaining his plan. I also just note that, like, we talked about this being the maskiest movie. It's actually in the third movie, the one after this, where they actually show you the device that makes a mask. Like, you've got to get a scan of somebody's face, and then it's like a 3D printer almost that creates it and then prints it out for you to use. And we even, in a nice touch, you see that you have to get somebody, if you don't have a sample of their voice, you need them to read, like, the contents of a card, so you've got, like, the ability to mimic their voice. And that becomes a plot later on, that like there's a scene where like the mask thing gets damaged or they don't have, so they've got to figure out a way around that. In this one, the masks just appear. Like because Ethan breaks into this facility where all the bad guys are, gets into an offstage fight with Hugh Stamp, and we can get into it later, but masks are involved that he could not have possibly brought in with him.
Yeah.
He just magically off-screen gets the masks he needs and puts them on the people where they need to be.
Well, and also the voice sample, because let's talk about it. It's at this portion of the point in the movie that they do this one gag that I think is the most impressive thing in the whole movie. Yeah, they get into a fight, and an explosion goes off, and then it cuts away back to Ambrose as they're carefully monitoring the transferal of his stock options, which I feel like should just, even in 2000 internet times, should have just been like, hey, all right, there you go. There's $37 million worth of stock. I don't know why they're making such a big deal out of transferring it. Whatever. The next thing you see is Hugh Stamp dragging a bound and gagged Ethan into the room.
So he's not even gagged. He's just making noises with his mouth.
Oh, that's
because,
right.
as Stamp says, I think I broke his jaw.
Yeah, that's right. And so he dumps Ethan on the ground, which gives Ambrose some time to taunt him and then throw one of his earlier lines back in his face, because Ethan makes a comment about Ambrose always having to get his gun off. So Ambrose tells Brendan Gleeson, and by extension Ethan, this is how you get your gun off. And then he shoots our protagonist multiple times in the chest. Is this the end of Ethan Hunt? No, because as he looks further down and Ethan's body collapses, he sees the medical tape around Ethan's pinky and realizes that at some point during the brawl, which lasted all of about 30 seconds, Ethan swapped clothes with Stamp. I think that's something that's very easy to miss because he showed up wearing tactical gear.
Yeah.
He took the time to completely swap clothes with this man, put on a mask of his face, and also apparently had the voice chip to imitate Stamp's voice, and made Sean Ambrose kill his own number one henchman while he stole the MacGuffins of the movie to run off with them as the hard rock Limp Bizkit Mission Impossible theme blares on the soundtrack.
It does give us a truly wonderful no scream from Ambrose, just a great deranged villain yell.
Yeah, an extreme close-up of Duke Ray, however you pronounce it, Scott, just overacting the hell out of this. It's hilarious. And
Yeah, so that gets us into the chase sequence.
yes, there we go. Oh yeah, because Ethan gets away on a Ducati. The villains all jump in cars to go after him. As I mentioned earlier, he jumps his motorcycle through the wreckage of a flaming car. It looks epic as hell. The fight spills out onto the road, where William Mapother's character, who had a name, I don't remember it, not Ethan Rom, is driving the lead car chasing him. So Ethan starts hitting the brake on the motorcycle to make a cloud of smoke, so that not Ethan, William Mapother's character, won't see the 18-wheeler barreling down on him until it's too late. The car stops. They do a dramatic zoom in on William Mapother's face, and the 18-wheeler just goes straight through it. And I wrote down, by William Mapother, "I'm sorry your car was made of paper mache and gasoline."
Oh, it was epic.
It's crazy that this was the same weekend I saw North by Northwest at the same time, which also has a wonderful scene where a vehicle crashes into a truck and explodes. And yeah, man, it was a weird theme of the weekend. Also watched Some Like It Hot, which is another film that deals with a lot of masks and identity changing.
Did not know that.
Wow.
So naturally, because this was the year 2000, Sean Ambrose ends up on a Ducati of his own. His is red, Ethan's is black. They're chasing each other. One of them gets turned around so that they can play chicken. And as they're charging at each other, right as their bikes are about to collide, they both jump off into a midair hug. It's the manliest thing ever. Not at all homoerotic.
And then they have this wild brawl across, again, this tied it back to Lost, a fight on like a rocky outcrop over crashing waves below. My first note was that I thought the choreography on their fight was pretty impressively nasty, that it didn't feel planned out. It felt like they were just like throwing elbows and punches at each other and just, hitting the other guy wherever they could. And then as it goes on further and further, Ethan starts busting out like capoeira or something. Like he's like going down on one hand to throw a kick up at Ambrose's face in slow motion. So it gets a little more stylized, but not a bad fight.
At one point during his secret base infiltration, to take out a guard, he does a 360 spin kick. It's ridiculous. Oh man, we just sort of skipped over in the notes the actual fight itself. It gets progressively ridiculous, more ridiculous. It leads to the knife in the eye moment, which I went and read about. I remembered the explanation behind this incorrectly. Tom Cruise insisted on this being done practically. In order to do it safely, the stunt team I remembered hearing about this, like there was no cable or anything to stop the knife. He was just relying on the stuntman to pull it off. No, the stunt team was relying on a very specifically measured length of cable to stop Doug Ray Scott's hand right in position. So the shot was achieved practically. That is a real knife that is like a quarter of an inch or less away from Tom Cruise's eye. After he finally defeats Ambrose, finally, in quotes, and starts walking away dramatically, we skipped over, like, Naya gets injected with an extremely communicable disease that they plan on spreading through downtown Sydney. It's ridiculous.
Very weird, because they're going to use her as, like, their Typhoid Mary, essentially, to, like, spread this virus and then sell the cure for all the money. But then they just let her go loose in the city, and Ethan explicitly says, if she gets to the point where she becomes contagious, she's going to kill herself. She's going to jump off a cliff. And it's like, oh, yeah, that would thwart the villain's plan, wouldn't it? Because she's got, like, her body is now the only sample of this virus. So why did they just let her go off and walk around?
Well, she is about to jump off a cliff when the rest of the IMF team shows up to rescue her per Ethan's instructions. My favorite thing about this ending, and when I watched it with Katie, this has been like 2 months, and we still keep quoting this one moment. Ethan, quote unquote, defeats Ambrose finally and is walking away, and the helicopter comes in and lands, and you see a close-up of Naya, now very close to death, lying in the back. And as it cuts to this close-up, Katie went, help me. And I followed that up with cure, please. And now we just randomly quote that to each other 2 months later. It's great. Guys, I think it was really great. This movie did a very good job of setting up Tandy Newton as the character of Nia Hall to be Ethan's love interest. A story that's going to carry through for the rest of the... Oh, wait, she never gets mentioned ever again in any of the movies ever.
Yeah, apparently she did not have a fun time working on this movie and just sort of decided not to come back, which... I mean, I love her as an actress. She's really talented, but if this was kind of the caliber of work they were going to give her, that seems like it was just best for everybody.
Yeah.
Agreed.
She would show up again 15 years later on Westworld.
Oh, so damn good.
And
Yep.
she was in Solo, a Star Wars story.
That's right. I forgot about that. Mostly because I forgot about Solo, a Star Wars story.
You don't remember the iconic character of Tobias Beckett?
I don't. I also don't remember what's your last name. I don't have one. Solo. Han Solo. In case anyone was wondering how Han got his last name.
Or the great reveal of how he acquired his iconic blaster. A guy handed it to him. But it's treated as like this. He's got that gun. It's like, yeah, the guy gave him a gun.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
This is a thing that happened.
feel
The movie itself isn't terrible,
No.
but it's also not great at
Oh,
all.
boy.
Underrated how good Alden Ehrenreich is. I think.
Yeah, he was the best part. His Harrison Ford impression was actually pretty good. Robert, you take the next to last one.
Oh, yeah, just mentioning that, yeah, Nia, it seems like they're setting up like, oh, she's a thief. So she's, teamed up with the IMF, but she's not on the same side of the law as them. And then, oh, no, well, they only recruit her because she's somebody's ex-girlfriend. Okay, but she's still a thief, so they can use her skills to, get information. No, Ambrose immediately figures out what she's up to, and then she's just a damsel. Okay, well, she's injected herself with this sample of the virus, so we're going to see her dealing with, people are going to tell us what she's doing, but I don't think she actually gets a line between when she injects herself and when they give her the cure. If she does, I don't remember it. It's just...
Nope, just the ones that me and Katie made up.
Yeah.
Help me.
So, again, a little weird that she's never brought up again, but Michelle Monaghan is Julia, Ethan's the woman that he's engaged to when we meet him back in the third movie. Gets so much more to do. So that is at least a nice direction the franchise moved in.
Well, tying it back in and proving that I totally knew what I was doing when I picked this movie for us, and it wasn't just a bit of 2000s nostalgia. The last line of the movie is Ethan telling Nia, "Let's get lost." Because we're a Lost podcast.
We are?
And I did it, you guys.
Yay!
Masterful. I know we're going to jump over to something else in a minute. I made one note at the bottom that kind of ties into the movie. Because I saw on the opening credits that this movie was written by Robert Towne, who wrote Chinatown, which is considered one of the best noirs and kind of the best new Hollywood movies of the 70s. Just fantastic script, and you look at that and you look at this and it's kind of confusing. To make it even weirder, he wrote the script. The story was developed by Ronald D. Moore and Brandon Brackett, who at that point were two of the main writers for Star Trek in the 90s. Just really weird that the studio called them up and was like, hey, give us a spy movie, why don't you? If you recognize the name Ronald D. Moore, it's because after this he went on to do the rebooted Battlestar Galactica, Outlander, and For All Mankind. So he's had a tremendously successful career as a TV producer since then and made some really good stuff. But this was, not his A game.
Maybe he had some head trauma, like he fell and hit his head and was like, oh, I don't really feel like doing this, but I guess I'll try.
See, it just makes me think that there was something to this movie at one point. There was a lot more plot, character development, better dialogue. That all just sort of went by the wayside when the decision was made, let's just make this an action movie through and through. Because the first one, despite having a pretty action-heavy ending, the first Mission Impossible in 96 is a spy drama. The third one has some action set pieces, but is a spy drama. And then it was Fallout that these really became not Fallout.
Ghost Protocol.
Ghost Protocol that these really became action spectacles. But this one really just stands out as being the most insane. Asterisk. Compared to the music video that I made the two of them and Katie watch afterwards. We watched the music video for Limp Bizkit's Take a Look Around. It is the most 2000s thing to have ever 2000. We're going to talk about it briefly because I want to ask, what was your favorite part? That they tried to give it a plot, that somehow the band Limp Bizkit gets drawn into having to do spycraft clumsily in a diner? Or was it snippets of the movie that were clumsily edited into the music video? Or was it the lyrics of the song itself? What was the best part for you guys?
Oh, wow. I mean, so much to consider. I would say the plot-ish thing.
Ish thing is right. It's everything about it is half-assed. Like, why is Fred Durst being given a mission to... What is this? Why are these men in suits? Do they work for the government? Are they spies? So, why are they stopping at a random diner? What is any of this about?
Yes. That's it. Full stop. Just yes. I'm going to go with the song itself, because this is one of the examples of Limp Bizkit trying really hard to write some deep, meaningful lyrics that would go on to live in infamy and people would still be remembering 25 years later. I couldn't tell you a single lyric from this song.
I was going to say, I've got nothing. I have a thing where I don't really hear lyrics the first time I listen to a song. Musicals are really difficult for me to watch because I know that like a lot of them involve plot relevant info, but I don't know, I just kind of hear like music, sound. I have this weird like sense impression, but my brain doesn't process what the words mean unless I really, really try. And so, yeah, I could not tell you a single lyric from that song, and probably couldn't have done so 5 minutes after watching it.
No, I do remember, because it's the lyrics right before it kicks into the Mission Impossible theme portion of the song are as such. Life's just a blast that's moving way too fast. You better look around or life will kick you in the ass. Poetry.
Oh, wow.
It's Shakespearean.
I mean, it's so good, I can't remember the name of the song, and you just said it a minute or so ago.
I said it in one of the lyrics. It's Take a Look Around.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
AKA theme to Mission Impossible 2.
Wow.
Oh, man.
I think the composer for that theme, Lalo Schifrin, just passed away
He did,
last
yes.
month, which kind of, I'm amazed that he survived his music being reimagined in that way. Like, again, the franchise comes up with some fun it's one of the most iconic, pieces of screen music ever. And there's some fun remixes in like the credit sequences and whatnot over the course of the franchise. That's not one of them.
No, it is not. I'm so glad I got to watch this movie with you guys. It's always a blast. I love just watching shit with the two of you. And I'm glad it could be this weird mess of a movie. So we're going to push Smoking Aces back until we finish season 3. We'll watch that between 4 and 5 because season 4 is the one that gives us Kevin Durand, and also in which Nestor Carbonell gets more to do. So I guess it's more appropriate. There were totally reasons why I picked this movie. It wasn't just arbitrary.
Is he a cast regular is Carbonell a regular in season 4?
I believe, yeah, he gets bumped up to regular.
Couldn't remember when that starts. One last thing. Have either of y'all ever seen an episode of like the Mission Impossible TV series from way back when it was based on?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, me neither. I think Peter Graves was sort of the lead. I know it's streaming on a couple of places. I always meant to go back and check it out because I heard it's fun. It's obviously more about the spy thriller elements than big action spectacle. But yeah, just curious if anybody else would watch that.
Nope. Can't say that I have. Well, that's going to wrap us up for Mission Impossible 2. And also for this season, we're going to go on hiatus for about 2.5 months. Not exactly sure. Sometime in September, we will come back for a much shorter run of episodes. We'll knock those out before the three of us go on a cruise, and we're gone for a week. So be on the lookout for Long Walk Talks Lost to return with season 4 of Lost sometime in September. Between now and then, Robert, either where people can find you on social media or a thing that you are reading, doing, enjoying that you'd recommend to the audience.
I am listening to an audiobook of Mutiny on the Bounty, the story of the HMS Bounty's ill-fated trip to Tahiti in the late 1700s by Australian historian Peter Fitzsimmons. It's written like a historical novel, so very narrative-focused. And the guy who does the audiobook reading has a very, very fun Australian accent. So, yeah, that's been what I've been enjoying recently.
Nice. Cara, social media or something you've been enjoying recently that you'd recommend?
Well, I actually just finished a book, an audiobook called The Apparitionists, which is about the craze of spirit photography that happened during the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln, that kind of thing. It was really fascinating. It was kind of along the same lines where it was more of a narrative type, not just facts and dry stuff like I normally like to listen to.
So the Civil War and ghosts?
Yeah.
Two of your favorite things?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Look at that.
I know.
Well, if you would like to follow me online, why? You can do so on Instagram at DB Hensley. If you want to keep up with Long Walk Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us. To see more of our original works or hear past episodes that are no longer streaming, you can follow the YouTube links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy this show, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening on.